is the grass really greener on the other side? But what if it really is? Let's find out. Welcome to the EMS Wizard podcast. I am Mark Casey. I have John Wilson, Terry Sheehy, and Walter Meads live on this episode. We are looking through the lens of the Wizards to bring in what? What is it,
Take a
John?
look, man. You got to learn how to read the room.
Wait a
Unlike they
minute.
do at EMS Expo presenters, you have to learn how to read the room. Um,
Hmm.
Walter is not with us. Um,
Oh, Walter's not in the room.
and Terry is also not with us. Neither are dead. I
I don't
don't
think they're
think
dead.
either are dead. I mean,
I
if
mean,
they
I did talk
are.
to Walter yesterday. I think he's okay. He's doing pretty good, actually.
Well, I talked to Terry earlier today, but neither are with us. However, I was able, since the show cannot be nearly, as good as you could expect it, I went out and got my friend, John Skinner from Greene County. He is like the EMS guy down there. And so I said, hey, look, we're talentless without Terry and Walter. Basically, we're just all
Go find us
thumbs.
some talent.
I go find talent, and that's what I did.
We
Today
got
was a good
some.
day for that, and I went and got talent. So, I found John Skinner. He was very reluctant. He was like, if Terry's not going to be on there,
I don't blame him.
Walter's not going to. I don't know, but once he heard that you were going to be on here, he was good with it. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know, he'd be. But anyway, welcome to the show, John.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. So, give us a little. Let's start off with a little recap of what. Tell us a little bit about Greene County EMS, what you guys are, where you're at in the state, and what you guys do.
So currently at Greene County, we've got three 24-hour ambulances that are all paramedic level. We went paramedic level back in 2022. And we've got two stations. Station 3 will be opening at the end of April. We'll be moving one of the trucks that are based in Snow Hill to the Maury area where Station 3 will be. So that'll put one truck at Snow Hill, one truck at Maury, one truck at Walstenburg, and a QRV in Snow Hill. The largest town in Greene County is Snow Hill. The other municipalities are Walstenburg and Hookerton. So we joke, a lot of people say, well, where's Greene County? And we tell them it's the road they travel on when they come down 58 going to the beach between Goldsboro and Kinston area. So that's usually where they connect to where we are.
So, are you on the coastal side of 95 or the other side of 95?
The coastal side.
Because that's the true
But he's
designator.
east. He's east,
Yeah.
John, not west. Anything on the other side of 95 is considered west.
Right, right. Okay, so just to put that in my perspective, well, no, because I actually am one of those that do not know geographically exactly where on the map I could throw Greene County into. Well, what led you to, let's start with first, how long have you been doing what you do in Greene County and what led you to that?
So I've been in Greene County for about 8 months. Prior to that, the majority of my career was spent in Edgecombe County, various roles all the way from an EMT. I started out as a volunteer there in 2013. Worked my way up. I was at Edgecombe for 5 years part-time because back then EMS jobs were hard to come by and they were full staffed. I was at Wilson County full-time for that duration. I got my paramedic in 2015 and then got promoted to assistant supervisor at Edgecombe Rescue Squad back in, I believe it was late 2017, early 2018, somewhere in there. Come over there full time, stayed about 2 years. And when the rescue squad was transitioning to the county, I actually left for a year, went to Halifax, was a paramedic on a truck and just like a preceptor as well. And then when Edgecombe County come back and decided they were going to take over EMS, I come back on as assistant supervisor January of 2021.
So you're one of those that can actually speak to the life of what it was like living a rescue squad mentality having to transition to the local government mentality, which was different. I was at Edgecombe. I believe we worked there a lot together and got to live that life. We talk about that a lot because the rescue squad, meant so much to, it means so much to so many people just statewide that come up through rescue squad based systems. And they always say that's the dying thing that comes out and what's going to take its place, and to live through a transition of knowing that you're leaving from a rescue squad base to a local government. That was kind of a different scenario, whereas some of our neighbors, like in Wake County and Johnson County, and even Franklin County, they sort of absorbed rescue squad jurisdictions over time. This was like a wholesale change, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so that culture was a little different when that took place, because it was a complete overnight Control Alt Delete transition of culture and change, and it was by far not overnight. It took a long time to do that, but and it led you along your way. What made you interested? Have you always wanted to be in management, like when you were coming up?
I knew I wanted to be in management, but I didn't necessarily know it was upper management. My goal was honestly to retire as a shift supervisor
Mm.
when I first got into EMS. Um, and I think for me, it was watching it done wrong is what really pushed me to go into upper management.
And so that's one of the motivators we're talking about a lot. Mark and I, when we teach, we mentioned some of that negative motivation stuff. And we have come to find that to be true. A lot of folks out there are just not necessarily motivated by the way people do things right. And you say, man, I want to be like them, but more or less seeing management done in a way that we think could be better. And that's a primary motivator on that. Mark, now, you mentioned that not long ago. Do you share that, or do you think you see it? I don't think I've ever asked you that before, Mark, but do you share negative motivation, or you just see it?
I think you're going to reflect on that, and you're probably going to exhibit some of that at some point. Especially as a newer or younger leader. You get into the job, get into the position because you've seen someone else that hasn't done it as well as you think you can do it, or you don't want to be that shift supervisor. You want to make the agency or the shift better, so you work so that you can become that person. But once we do get into that position, we're still going to stumble, we're still going to struggle. So the one of the most difficult things we have to learn as a shift supervisor or manager, as an officer, is to admit when we don't know something, and be able to admit that we need help, or I'm not doing something right, and I need to learn how to do it better, and how can I do it better. I think that's one of the most valuable lessons as a manager, or as a supervisor, coming into an agency. And I can only imagine having kind of gone through, because I've been kind of a one EMS agency guy myself, coming from one agency for 17 years. Versus John, your experience is a little bit different from the volunteer perspective, which I have some of, where I started in the volunteer rescue squad, volunteer fire department days of things, and then went from Edgecombe and Wilson and now in Greene. So just from those differences from agency to agency, what's some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from that supervisory officer level perspective?
I think the biggest one for me is seeing what does work, what doesn't work. Um, we always say if you've seen one EMS system, you've only seen one EMS system. They're all, they're not the same. The political background of the county has a lot to do with it. Also, the employees themselves. You have to, in management, you have to be somewhat of a salesman, and learning how to sell your ideas to your people that would carry it out is key. And watching some methods of carrying ideas and visions out that did work, didn't work, I've taken all of that, put together, and kind of tailored my management leadership style to that.
If you ever get to the point where you can't cut it in real EMS and stuff, you go work for the state. But otherwise, you can, not that anybody on here would know anything about that, but
Hang on, I can't get it out. Can't reach it. Terry, can you grab it?
Hold on. Did it feel like a train running? Because that probably would be, Terry. But um, I think, do you think it's harder? And now I'm going to pull from some words from a mutual friend of ours, of Antoine Brown in Edgecombe. One of his things that he said has always stuck with me is he's always said you have to educate before you advocate. Which one do you think is more important, educating your politicians or educating your staff?
Initially, it would be educating the politicians. The
Okay.
reason I say that is you have to get the funding to be able to do the things that you want to do, right?
Okay.
And kind of simultaneously while that's going on, educate the staff, give them your vision, give them your 1 year plan, 5 year plan, down the road so they can see where we're going. And I think both of those work together.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Was you've really got to make sure that we have that, that same thing you keep on referring to, that mission, that vision. You have to know, are we playing to the same sheet of music? Are we all working toward the same task, working toward that same goal? Because there's a lot of times, especially in very rural EMS systems that I can very much speak to, sometimes, between 3 or 4 different shifts, and, sometimes you have a difference between administration and shift supervisors, or even shift supervisors and the field staff. You have different missions and different goals and different values that kind of become established, that creates the culture. So I think the main thing we need to be looking at is, what is our overall mission and vision, and are we steering that culture, or are we just leaving it to kind of develop into whatever that shift's mentality is, or that group's mentality is? I think that's something that we have to be aware of. But whenever we're establishing those goals, because if we're just establishing goals and we don't know where we're going, how we're going to get there, how far are we going to get, man? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like you have to have that stuff nailed down and then start working on those goals to be successful and for the purpose of growth, right?
Right.
Because you guys have gone through a lot of growth just recently. You said Greene County just went paramedic level in 22, right?
Yes, February of 2022.
Yeah. So what was some valuable lessons that probably come out of that? Because there's not many. Well, there are no other EMS agencies that can speak to becoming a paramedic level agency in I don't even know what other agency before that would have been the last one to go on paramedic level. But there's not many EMS agencies in the state that's recently gone through that. So what were some valuable lessons that you guys had going through that process?
So before I got there in July of 2023, there was about a 4 year gap where they actually did not have a full-time EMS manager in Greene County.
Wow.
Had a part-time EMS manager that did a tremendous job. I don't know how he done it, everything that he did in a part-time role. But he really set the foundation for what we've got now. Currently, we have a education agreement, so we'll pay EMTs, AMTs through to go to paramedic school. As long as they sign that 2 year contract work with us, we'll pay for it completely, including their time in class. They really took a step and upgraded all the equipment, brand new Zoll monitors, the King Visions on every truck. So the foundation was there. What I've had to do is really change the mindset of the providers. A lot of the providers have been there for a long time, and going from an intermediate level to a paramedic level system, you can't behave the same way. You have to step your professionalism up. You have to step your education up. Everything has to be elevated. And that in turn means more money. And that's really where we're at now, is trying to get that operational budget to meet our needs where we are now.
Well, that EMS budgets in general, they're not like a black ink budget. They're always in the red, so it's mitigating all the loss that one does have in that. And I can imagine that's challenging. Is there a hospital in Greene County?
There's not.
So what's the closest facility you transport to? Just my carnal knowledge.
So majority, about 60% of our patients will go to UNC Lenore.
UNC London. How far away is that?
They're about 25 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, and do y'all do non-emergency transport there?
We do not.
You know, okay. just like I said, learning a little bit about the system. So I can see that your challenges are laid down before you pretty well. At least you probably get some money on your mileage. I would imagine you probably have to ask the public for some money. So taxes come into play.
Yes, so we're in the process of trying to get a 4-cent EMS tax passed. It was brought up last year prior to my arrival, due to some other increases that had to happen in the county. It did not get passed. So really educating the commissioners and the manager and all on why we need this increase, what it will do for us is really key. So educate before you advocate.
Yeah, and that's a lot into one little. If you're talking about an agency that you have several transitions. You have the transition from advanced to paramedic. You got the transition from 4 years of, I think I heard you say part-time management to not only full-time management, but you. And so now there's that transition of getting used to who you are, because did they know you before you got there? Did you know you needed? So it's just like this stranger, stranger danger. Well, usually it's just
Oh no.
usually that's just with Terry, but you got that stranger danger stuff, and then they got to learn that culture. So there's that transition, and then it's, oh, by the way, welcome. I'm Chief Skinner. I need money, and I would like the people to give it to us so that we can be funded to do all this thing to meet the mission and stuff. So, what prepared you for that the most, do you think? That'd be a pretty heavy lift even for a 1 year guy like me. That's kind of a heavy lift. So, what prepared you for that?
I think living through the transition in Edgecombe County really helped, because really going from advanced EMT to paramedic, in my eyes, that is a brand new system, just like Edgecombe Rescue going from rescue to Edgecombe County-based EMS.
Yeah.
So being able to learn some of those lessons and take with me, and also in my time at Edgecombe, when I was promoted to captain, I was also the compliance officer as well as the shift supervisor, and really learning how to implement policies, procedures, analyze data for QA, QI, all of that really helped.
Do you think that data gives you a good snapshot of the agency, or do you think that is, or it doesn't? I mean, before we get any further with that, do you think when you look at data, do you think that's an excellent way to get a snapshot of the agency, or it is not an excellent way to find out?
If pulled correctly, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
And Mark, you live that data life. That's why I mentioned that.
Yeah, somewhat. Not so much anymore, but somewhat.
I said lived. It was an ED.
Lived, past tense. Yeah. Well,
past tense, like Duke, past tense.
Past tense. Correct. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you've got to have that data element steering what your agency is doing. You've really got to rely on that. And I know that it sounds cliche because, anybody's ever had a discussion about data or ever talked to James Hood for more than a couple seconds will let you know that, if you don't put good data in, you don't get good data out of it. And if you're not actively, constantly evaluating that data, that information, even though you think it might be the same thing each and every time, that one time you don't check it, it'll be like that one time you didn't do that 12 lead on that patient. It can come back to bite you. So, kind of talking about, coming off of data and, probably maybe even I'd say a hot topic in EMS on, some recent changes with the recent scope of practice change for the advanced EMT level. A lot of conversations have been had about, well, should this scope of practice change? Should we look at this differently? Should we look at this role within the agency differently? And do they deserve more compensation? Or is this that, they're just kind of, well, this is part of their job and this is just the norm and this is what's expected. And I've been on both sides of that argument. I've been on the fence about it. I've been acting like a Democrat for some reason about it. But so what? And I pose this question to either one of you guys. Just looking from your perspectives, what do you see with this AMT scope of practice increase? Should there be a pay raise for it, or is it just another part of their job? But we'll start with, well, I can't say John because there's two of you now, but Chief Skinner, how about that?
All right. I think that there does need to be an increase. It's more responsibility, more training they're going to have to go through. In Greene County, we're very fortunate. We are full staffed, paramedics on every truck.
Mm.
So we're not really having to live that life, but I come from that life in other counties where you had the tiered response model and all of that. So it would definitely benefit those counties. For us at the moment, not so much.
Yeah, I probably, I mean, of course, if you're going to increase, scope as much as it is, I would not say that increase in scope automatically means give me more money. I got a different feel about it. First of all, look, it's not to discount, you know, pay us more because I'm an advocate for that. But paying us more isn't going to fix what's broken. The overall EMS system, in my opinion, is broken, almost like the public school system is broken. I'll go on record and say that. So, I mean, those are two things that are broken. So how do we fix it? Paying more money, just helps you sort of make people happy in the broken system for a minute. But to keep on track with what you're asking, baby Mark, that is, should you pay them more with such a wide change like it is, so much that was changed with the scope? I think you do have to look at it for that aspect. Now, I also believe that the value of AMTs have probably went up, and maybe the value in paramedics either needs to be reevaluated and said, can we be a paramedic-less system, or should we reallocate what our paramedics do and what purpose do they serve? And that actually has opened up the thing, because I'm actually writing a paper on something right now about this, and that is, paramedic, does that make a better manager? Almost the same argument when we get into degrees making a better paramedic. At the end of the day, when you run an EMS system, and if you're talking about management of it, does the level of credential that the person have really even equate to anything other than the cultural understanding of something? And so from that, I point to several systems that maybe do not have a paramedic as their EMS director that do very well managing their EMS system. So to get back onto the track of what you're asking, in this particular case, I think absolutely it includes a pay increase because of how much scope has changed, but only if you can justify it. And I certainly wouldn't want to trade that for something else we may need in the system, But if we're going to if we're going to bring paramedics out of, like, if I'm going to, a justification would be, if I'm going to change a paramedic truck to an AEMT truck, well, that, politically saves money. That's what the political ears would want to hear. And because it's saving some of that, it can, some of those savings can be dumped into the AEMT level, So I think that's a really big ask there, Mark.
It's a pretty big one. I wanted to just get a little bit of perspective on that from you guys, because I try to look at different things, through the different angles, the ways different people will view things. And I think that with the amount of responsibility that's being added to our advanced EMTs, and with the the increase that we're having to heavily rely on more of our advanced EMTs to provide that ALS level, coverage and skills and things of that nature. Yeah, I think we need to look at that pay increase, but we also going to need to look at and evaluate where are our paramedics standing right now, because I can see where in a lot of agencies you're going to bump up that pay, whatever that pay bump is going to look like. Is that going to create some of that, what that term that HR uses, that salary compression range between that advanced EMT and that paramedic? And then the paramedic's like, well, let me just get this responsibility off of me. I'll be an advanced EMT and let the paramedics worry about it. I'll just work here as an advanced EMT. And so I think that's that. And we're already dealing with a paramedic shortage, right? So if I'm an EMT, why am I going to go to paramedic school whenever I can go to advanced EMT school, make pretty decent money, not quite as much as a paramedic, but pretty darn close. And I'm good where I'm at. I think that this, we could probably do we could do a 2-hour segment, I think, on this whole discussion right here. But I just want to get you guys' perspective on that and just kind of share that with everybody, because I know that's a conversation that's going on in a lot of agencies across the state right now. So,
well, John, when you came up, one thing I do want to know, because you and I have had several conversations over the years, but I don't know that I've ever asked this particular question. And that is, when you was baby Skinner and you were out there and you were playing you on your big wheel out in like the trailer park that you grew up in, and you're on your big wheel riding around, what is it you wanted to be when you grew up?
So watching my grandfather, he's the one that got me into the fire service. Um, he was on South Edgecombe Fire Department for 40 years, was a fire chief there. And I remember going to calls with him, getting locked in the passenger seat of the truck saying, stay here. And, he would come back whenever. Um, and he started bringing me around the fire department when I was probably 12, 13 years old. And at the time, our junior fire department age was 14. I quickly realized that I didn't care as much about the fire service as I did EMS.
Hmm.
So it was my junior year of high school, I got my EMT and just followed that path. And I knew then I wanted to be in management of some sort because my father has always been in management in the pharmaceutical and manufacturing industry.
Now, did you take EMT in high school? Like, was it a high school class, or did you take EMT at the fire department? You just happened to be in high school.
So I took the night class at Edgecombe Community College. It was
Oh, okay.
Tuesday and Thursday nights.
Gotcha. Who's instructor then?
Danny Butler.
Danny Butler. Oh yeah, yeah. Tar Real Fire.
Yep.
Good dude. And then you said your family was in the pharmaceutical industry. That just a like fancy word for they were in Rocky Mountain. They were drug dealers.
No,
Oh, okay.
legal pharmaceutical industry.
Well,
Good question.
You hear Edgecombe, that's Rocky Mountain-ish, and they're pharmaceutical there too, so
It's a different kind of pharmaceuticals.
well, you never know. So Justin Bowers and me are going to come to Greene County and we're going to eat barbecue. First of all, that's a lie because Justin Bowers won't even come to my home county to eat real barbecue. He goes traveling all the way, talk about it anyway. But if we were coming to Greene County to eat barbecue, where would we go?
Mm.
Right off the bat, he's not coming. I can tell you, Justin's not coming now. You didn't took too long to answer.
I think Justin's going to now because you've called the boy out. He's going to show up.
No, he didn't even listen. He's like, no, I'm done with this because first of all, Justin's going to hear in the very beginning that Terry's not on this episode. And he's going to cut it right off. That's it.
Yeah, that's true.
Not worried
Maybe.
about it.
Yeah, the only barbecue place in Greene County would be Morris Barbecue.
Yeah, is it good?
It's pretty good.
All right, good. I mean, it gives you something to drive for. I mean, what else would I drive to Greene County for?
Unless you coming to see us, that's about it.
Highway patrol is pretty heavy there, huh?
They are.
Yeah, the only reason I know that is because one got me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that I was able to contribute to that county at one point in time. But
he got his quota that day.
He did. I deserved that one, but I was like, I had to ask, what county am I in, just so I know. Like, what counties do you border? You border Jones?
Not Jones. We border Lenoir, Pitt, Wilson, and Wayne.
Okay, all right. It seemed like the last sign I had seen coming where I was going today was Jones, but
is it Farmer in the Dale in Greene County?
Yes.
Is that? Oh man, they have the best.
What
breakfast.
Is that?
Farmer in the Dale.
That's a good place.
The best breakfast, the best baked goods, and yeah, definitely worth. That's probably the two things you need to do if you ever find yourself in Greene County is definitely hit up Moore's and go to Farmer in the Dale.
So John, so do you have a community college that you work with? Is it Lenoir?
It's Lenoir, yes.
Okay. And we talk a lot on here about how different it is for some agencies to work with their partners and stuff. What's your feeling on working and with your community college partners? Do you feel it's pretty strong? Do you feel like it's rebuilt or was never built or you had to build it?
It's a very strong relationship we have. They even will leave equipment at our EOC where we can use for training on our own. So that helps us budgetarily with that. They come in any class we want. they'll jump all over it, make it happen. We just participated last week in a MCI drill they had, and previously we had not participated in that with them before. So hopefully that relationship's getting even stronger.
And that's good because you need, I mean, that's to my point is that we have to build these relationships for resources. And to me, like your county is one of those that you have a vision, you want to grow, you want to go somewhere, you're resource thin, you're kind of strapped for that. And so it's essential to have the public educated, which you're on track of doing, people getting behind your culture, which you're on track of doing. And you just said that you have, a strong relationship with your community college partner. And it sounds like they're willing to help and stuff. So that sounds like a pretty good roadmap to success from the perspective of being an EMS manager. Where do you want the place to go? What does John Skinner see Greene County being? What is that 1 year? You mentioned a 1 year, 5-year plan. I don't know what a 5-year plan looks like, but a 1 year plan, I'm definitely get on board with. What does that look like?
So the 1 year plan, of course, into April, Station 3 will be coming online. By not this coming budget year, but the one after, I'd like to add a 4th ambulance, whether that be a peak time or 24-hour truck. Currently, I think a peak time would be sufficient. And we still have a coverage gap in the western side of the county in the Shine and Fort Run community. So Station 4 would likely go toward the western end. A lot of the staff want to see a community paramedic program, but I think we would benefit from that greatly.
Well, it certainly sounds like a full plate from that. Now, the $1 million question on here is, other than me, who is your best friend?
You can ask that. Terry's not here.
I can ask it because he's not here.
Well, being honest, I'm not organized enough to rank them, so I just value all of them equally.
This has been a horrible episode, John. I just want you to know that this was
pretty
your
good
time to shine. This is your time to shine and really cap it off, and it probably would have been the top-rated one had you just told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But I understand without having. Well, let's just get Let's get Walter's perspective on this. Walter, what do you?
Oh, wait a minute.
Right. That's right.
Dang it, Walter! I'm the only guest.
I'm a guest. I'm a special
the
guest.
Regular guest.
I am all alone on my podcast.
And this is the John Show.
Nah, this has a pretty good ring to it. I would say, look, it is the John
never heard
show.
that before.
But you got John and John.
John and John.
It's the John show.